here at the lovely Shivananda Ashram in Grass Valley, California, Northern California. And it's the day before New Year's Eve, 2015, so another year has come and gone. I hope it was a good one for you, and I hope it was full of great lessons and great blessings and things like that, all the good stuff. It was certainly a beautiful and mixed one for me, with a lot of lessons and a lot of great triumphs and very few tragedies, if any. There's never any tragedies in life after a certain point, but great things to work on for the upcoming year. And just making this video, because we're on the verge of a couple big changes as 2016 is about to begin. Right now we have, in particular Mars and Venus are exchanging, and Mars is in Libra and Venus is in Scorpio with Saturn. And when planets exchange like this, they take their energies and sort of work in dialogue. So the reason I say exchange is because Venus is in a sign ruled by Mars and Mars is in the sign ruled by Venus. And so it brings into question the qualities of Mars and Venus, which are really quite opposite because they rule opposite signs, actually, because Mars rules Aries, Venus rules Libra, Mars rules Scorpio, Venus rules Taurus. These are opposite each other. And so it's not enough to just sort of say that. You have to know what's opposite about them. And, I talk about these things quite a lot, but Mars is really that sort of conviction, that individual strength, that individual drive. And that individuality makes us strong internally, and brings that capacity to really know our boundaries and our limits, and gives us the personal strength to really walk the talk rather than just talk the talk and then get angry at people who don't conform to our version of what's right or wrong. Fight with them. That's not authentic strength. That's sort of mental weakness. So Mars gives us the courage to actually do what we know is right rather than talk about it or argue about it or have opinions about it. And Venus gives us the capacity to enjoy life and to be tolerant of other people's values and views. You can see how these things can work together. When we're not really established in our self and our true convictions, then Mars can become a problem because we tend to think that my way is the only way. I'm right, everybody else is wrong. No, I can be right, and everybody else can be right too, depending on what we're talking about, of course. But most of the time, we don't get into battles over those universal truths. We get into battles over selective truths, these opinions, where I'm right, so you must be wrong, rather than I'm right, and you're also right, according to your values and value system. And that's what Venus brings in. Venus brings in a tolerance for everyone's views, for everyone's, unique path, and brings a desire to try to find out about it and to honor it equal to my own. And they can be at odds with each other because, of course, when we get into a relationship, not just romantic, but any relationship with another autonomous being, with another adult or another equal, those personal values and those personal things are going to be tested. We're going to have, because they're not going to agree with our views on everything. And then our true strength, or lack of it, will be revealed. And so we see this, of course, we definitely see it in romantic relationships. What happens when the person stops making you happy? For instance, how do you respond? Do you pathologize them and say, well, you must be, insane. How can you not see it the way I see it? Of course, the way I see it is the universal, unyielding truth of existence. Or do you have tolerance for their views? But just because you have tolerance for their views doesn't mean you have to sacrifice your own. So how do you express your truth without trampling on theirs? It's a very tricky thing, and relationships bring us into this. And, you know, it would be tempting to say that Venus is a more kind of sophisticated version of the Mars equation, but it's really not true, because, you know, Venus, you know, if we don't have a clear sense of identity first, and we're not really clear and personally strong about those no compromise zones, then the Venus desire to compromise brings in more trouble, brings as much trouble as Mars' unwillingness to compromise. Because what happens is both of them wind up circling back on each other. So I'm talking about this now because they're in dialogue. And what I mean to say is that if we're not really clear about our no compromise zones, and then when we get involved with people, again, not just romantically, but on any level, then we're not going to have a clear sense of what to defend and what the boundary is, and we're going to just feel like people are walking on us all the time because of our desire to want to please others, or to have people like us, or to make everybody happy. We compromise things that are very integral to our own identity for a while. It's never forever. It's for a while. Then eventually the Mars part of us gets tired of that and asserts our own will, and it's often an extreme. It's an extreme version, and it tends to blindside people, especially if we've been pretending or acting like we're complicit with something for a long time that we actually weren't. Something that was bothering us, but we didn't have the capacity or the integrity to voice it. Then it comes out in either some like frustrated conversation, or maybe we just cut the person out of our life entirely and they never even know why. You ever had someone do that before? You're like, geez, I don't know what happened to this person. I thought everything was fine. Now all of a sudden they like ignore me and they never speak to me again. Well, it's because they were holding resentments and pretending to be okay with things that they weren't, with an inability to actually speak that, and first with an inability to define it on their own terms first. So this is why these things are so important, because first we need to actually know what those no compromise zones are, whether it's behavior or opinion or whatever. Then we need to also not turn that into a judgment, again, which means just because I'm not okay with this, it means you're wrong or you're bad. And then we need to, you know, and when we're able to do that, then once we get into situations where we're being asked to, you know, compromise with something that we're not comfortable with, we either know that it's something that I'm never going to be able to compromise with, or we can, you know, or we voice it in a way that doesn't have any condemnation, any sort of charge behind it, rather than making the other person wrong and backing them into a corner and confronting them rather than having a conversation with them. The problem with Mars energy, once it comes out that way, is we're already judge, jury, executioner, and we're confronting someone and backing them into a corner rather than even asking or making a request. So again, you know, this kind of sliding on our no compromise zones may seem good for a while, like, oh, that person's so nice, and, you know, oh, hi, like any kind of, I'm very aware now of any kind of phony compliance with something. My alert, my radar goes up. Anything phony is a warning. Anything. Someone who's like, oh, they're just so nice. When you see like phony smiling and da-da-da, realize that underneath it all, there's a seething reptile, right? Really, because Mars is a tamasic planet. It's like the reptile brain. If someone's going to be like phony smiling, like, oh, yeah, okay, and they're like, oh, you can't see my face, like, oh, okay, yeah. So I had to take my glasses off so you could see my over gesticulation. Then you know that underneath it all, it's covering up for something that's just thinking like, you son of a bitch, you bastard. But instead of finding some middle ground, it's this over compliance. And that's only going to last for so long, especially the more you get to know the person, or the more, you know, you deal with them. Eventually you'll find out whatever it is that they're not comfortable with. So when they exchange, this becomes a big theme, and it's really a great opportunity for us to check in about how we are with people. Do we over assert our boundaries too much? Are we like inflexible, like either everything somebody needs to do is the way I want it, or else I have no tolerance for it? Or are we so kind of rudderless in our identity that we find ourselves just kind of always responding to other people's agendas but never feeling appreciated? Again, see, this is the problem with the Venus equation. This is why you shouldn't judge either one as good or bad. Because you might say, well, it's better if Venus is stronger. No, it's not. It's not better if Venus is stronger, because this is the people that you hear always moaning and complaining that nobody appreciates them, nobody respects them, and always feeling like a victim because nobody listens to what they say. Well, no, it's nobody's job but yours. It's nobody's job but yours to establish your identity and to establish what you're not happy with and what you're not comfortable with. It's nobody's job to legislate your boundaries. If people are alert, they'll be able to notice, look, you don't seem very comfortable with that. I see all this smiling, and this is what I do. This is why I'm such a great friend, right? As soon as I see people doing that, I mean, if I don't have any investment in them, I just kind of tune out a little bit. If I see someone like over smiling or whatever, I'm just like, okay, whatever, something's going on there. If I have to deal with the person, if I have to deal with them, then I'll like say, you're saying yes, but I don't really trust it. You seem a little uncomfortable, or like, are you sure everything's okay? Tell me, and I'll insist they tell me. And if you have people in your life like this, do it. Try to do it kindly and graciously, and see what happens. Maybe you can help them out of some of that, because it's sad to see people who are going around feeling disrespected, but it's because they don't respect their self enough to have a healthy sense of identity, like a healthy boundary. And the stereotype, to get into a gender stereotype, because there is one, because Mars is a masculine planet, Venus is a feminine one, is you'll tend to hear women bemoan that more, that he doesn't appreciate me, he doesn't respect me. You'll hear that more of a woman's lament often, and a man's lament, or a sort of lament that the woman has about the man is he's too inflexible and he just wants it his way. It's not completely wrong, but it's also, once we start to evolve, this loop starts to close a little bit. And you certainly have men who are compromising way too much and women who are way too assertive. It has to do with individual charts for sure. But you can look at that kind of stereotype. But right now, with Mars in Libra, especially, which has to do with relationship, and Venus in Scorpio, which has to do with our vulnerabilities and our insecurities, it's a really good time, as they're in dialogue for, about another, week and a half or two. I don't remember off the top of my head. It's a good time to look at this equation and see how you come down on it. A lot of it is integrity. A lot of it is the integrity to first honor your own boundaries and your own value systems without turning them into judgments and opinions, which is Mars, and then how you connect that individuality with others in a way that's not, in a way that folds in and honors your individuality first and allows space and room for the other person to also express themselves the way they do. And it doesn't mean you have to it doesn't mean you have to have a constant relationship with the person. This is one of the problems with Venus, is we feel like because we understand and honor the other person's values or the other person's way, that we have to stay involved with them constantly, or we have to take it on somehow too, and stay engaged with it. We don't. We can just say, okay, this is an area where we just don't really agree, but here's ways we do agree, and just stay with that, or whatever it is. Because Venus wants to really honor and love every individual. Venus type of energy can get lost in the sense of the higher picture, because we're trying to make every little person around us okay, and we don't want to satisfy ourselves at the expense of another. Sometimes we can get in this kind of revolving door where we feel like any kind of boundary is a kind of judgment. So this is a tricky thing, again, that we can really look at now with this Mars-Venus dialogue that's gone on for a while. So besides that, give you a little tour, just let you see the beautiful landscape here in the Sierras, foothills of the Sierras in California. It's really nice up here. Nice big hill up there that I walk on, that I'll walk up. So anyway, that's all the content as I dissolve into the rays of the sun. Happy New Year.